how to build your body by doing only push-ups, as I've shown you. I've built my body by doing 95% of the exercise which I did is only push-ups. Now there's of course there's a reason, like the push-up exercise is the kind of the ultimate exercise you can do to build your body. Now you don't have to do only push-ups, of course, but in this video you already know that push-ups can give you incredible results, right? I'm going to specifically talk about how to actually be consistent in doing push-ups, because you know the effects they can, like the results, all of that stuff. But how can you get that if you're not even consistent? And I'm not the most consistent guy, by the way. Last year, for 3 months, I did, in total 3 months, I did not miss a single day. That was the kind of time where I was fully consistent. And I did around, in 3 months in total, I did around 23,000 push-ups. Now, I have an idea what would make you be consistent with something, right? And we're talking about push-ups, so I know that, right? And when if someone who has already experienced this, when you do this for a certain amount of time, a month or two, you just become that person. I'm not gonna talk in that much detail about this specific thing, but you just become that person who does push-ups. Like, there would be nights where I would not feel like doing that, but I would do it because that's just who I have became. That at that time, that's just who I became, right? And there would be nights where like it was 1 a.m. and I would know, like, I can't miss it, so I have to do it. So I for 3 months I did not miss a single day. On average, I was doing 200 push-ups. There were days, some days I did 500, 400, something like that. Now, how did I get to that point? Because previously, when I would do push-ups, I would only do for a week, on max for a week, and then I would forget about it. Now, the year before last year, 2022, I started in December. I started with doing 50 push-ups because I could already do more than that. But I started with 50. Now, the reason I started with 50 is because when you do a certain amount of push-ups, which is easy for you to do, easier, like right now, in terms of what you can actually do right now, the amount of push-ups that you can do in a row, right? Half of that, do it every single day. Now, why would you say you're telling me to do half of that? If you're honest with yourself right now, where you are in your life, you're dependent on the way you feel. And because you're dependent on the way you feel, sometimes when you would feel like you can do more, when you feel motivated, you will do more. But most of the time, you're not. But you can do half of what you can do normally, right? Because that doesn't necessarily require that much motivation. It's easy for you to do. And the thing about discipline, or whatever you want to say, and this is another thing, when you actually get disciplined, you won't call it discipline because it's just who you are. You call it discipline when you're trying to get to that point where you will be disciplined. But when you get to that point, that it's not discipline anymore. It's just who you are. So the reason we are doing less push-ups from the beginning is because you're not someone who can just do a certain amount of push-ups and just be consistent with that. And that's why we, more than normal, right? Let's say you can do 20 in a row and you say, I'm going to do 50 every single day. I'm not saying that you won't be able to do them. I'm not saying that you won't be able to be consistent. You can be still. But from what I've experienced, right? If you do less, but for a longer period of time, you're reinforcing this identity. I'm sure you have heard about this. You're reinforcing this identity that I am this person, right? That I am this person, yeah, that I do this and that and that. But the most important thing is, in the beginning, you're not building muscle. You're building discipline. You need to build the foundation of discipline. The muscle will you will get muscle by itself, right? You just need to build the foundation of discipline, and that is simple. You need to have momentum. How do you have momentum? I know you've heard this. I heard this, I didn't take it seriously. like I think I read this in a book. I didn't understand it at that point that much, but later when I actually did it, like I was just doing it, and then I understood that, oh, that's what the book was saying, right? You have to start a little bit. I know you've heard this. You start a little bit slow, right? Start slow and then gradually you increase it. Now the truth about this is that when you're doing push-ups, let's say you can do 50 in a row, you will feel like you want to do more. Like let's say if you do 20, if you can do 50, let's say you can't even do 50, so right. Let's say you can do 20 in a row. Do 10. Even if you can do 10, do 5. But the point is not to listen, you're not building muscle here in the beginning, you're building discipline, and it will take time. You're building the momentum. And over time, when you do this, you start to become that person. And this is another thing. You will feel like you want to do more, but you don't. You will feel motivated to do more, but you don't. Why? You're depending on your emotions. If you do more, and because you feel motivated, you do more, you're depending on your emotions. If you feel motivated while you're doing all of that, right? That let's say you can do 20 and you do 10, even 8 every single day, right? And you feel motivated, that like a lot of days you will feel motivated, and because you did 10, you will feel like, well, if I did 10, I can do more, right? That's how you're gonna feel. But you're not gonna do more, right? Because the thing is, if you do more, you're feeling like doing more on that specific day, and you won't feel like that the next day, or maybe some next days, like later days. You may not feel like that, and you won't do it, because let's be honest, you do depend on your emotions. And right now we are changing that, and it's a slow process. It will take time. This is why we are building discipline, not muscle, in the beginning. The muscle will, like, it will be built by itself because of the discipline which you're building, which later you won't call it discipline. It will just be who you are. So in the beginning, if you can do 20, only do 10. Even less than 10, 8. Every single day, that's the thing. And this is the thing, it's not specifically, it may seem like, oh, why would I do half of that, right? I can do more. You still can, but the chance is less that you will be that you will be consistent with it. But you still can. I'm not saying that you won't be, but it's better to build the identity first than to build the muscle, because the muscle will get built by itself if you already are that person who does push-ups, right? So pick a number. Let's say if you can do 25, that you're going to do 15, 10 today, starting from today, and you do that for the next 10 to 15 days. The thing is, you will feel like you want to do more, because when you do 15 and you can do more, you will want to do more, but you don't. That's the thing, because if you do, in a way, you're depending on your emotions, because you're feeling motivated, right? I don't know. You would not normally hear this, that, oh, don't do more push-ups if you're actually feeling motivated, but you're just creating the identity. Because the thing is, if you depend on that emotion that you're feeling motivated, right now you may feel it, tomorrow you won't, the next day you won't, right? So do a certain amount, pick a certain amount, right? A number. I'm going to do 10 today for the next 10 days, 20 days, even if it's a month. Don't hurry, right? You will want to hurry, but don't hurry. After, let's say, 15 days, then increase, not a lot, and you will feel like you can do more, because you are building muscle. Even if it's 10, you're still getting progress. You may feel like you want to do a lot more, 50, 100, whatever, but you don't increase that much. You increase like 5, right? And that's just how you do it. Slowly you increase it, and then you just kind of become consistent with it. But one thing I will say is that while you're going through this process, you can miss days. Like when you're going through these process, even if you can do 10 push-ups and it's not hard, there may be some days you won't do it. I didn't do it, right? So I'm not going to say that, oh, you just can't do it. There will be days where you won't do it, right? It's possible. And don't use that as an excuse, obviously. But what's going to happen is that there will be days where you may not do it, and that doesn't mean that you didn't lose. Just go back, right? That's what I did. There were while that period in 3 months, there was a time where I didn't do for push-ups for 10 days, but I still came back. So you have to come back. Now I'm not saying you don't use that as an excuse that, well, I can miss some days. No, only if you there's a reason, whatever. No, most of the time, if you're honest, it's just because you don't want to do it. But that's why you're choosing a certain number which is easier for you to do. So over a long time, like over a long period of time, you're becoming that person, so it's easier for you to do. And it's just that simple. And I mean, it's not that complicated, but if you want to ask a little bit more about it, specifically with your situation, I can tell you how exactly you would do that. But then another thing with specifically building muscle, of course, you don't specifically have to do push-ups, but I just showed you that I've built this body. We're only doing push-ups, 95% of push-ups. But if you're in the beginning, you don't have to do a lot of exercises because you're building the identity first, not the muscle. So you need to be patient, and it's going to take time. But start with push-ups. Then when you feel like you are getting more consistent in it, then you can add some other exercise. Do not hurry, because when you're in a hurry, you won't be able to get that much momentum. I'm not saying that you won't be able to get that much momentum, but you're lazy. You depend on your feelings. And you have to change that. And to be able to change that, you have to get a bit of momentum. You get to create that identity of this person who would do things even the moments where you feel like, oh, I don't feel like doing that. Right? I'm tired is because of this. And most of the time it's excuses. You will realize that later. But try to make sure you don't miss days. Even if you do, just come back. No problem. Come back, right? Because you can. So come back. And I'm going to say that don't expect yourself to, even if you're saying that you're going to do 10, I'm not going to say, or don't think to yourself that you're going to do 10 for the rest of your life. Not rest of your life, like you're going to be consistent. You may not be. Not saying don't use it as an excuse, but it can happen. I'm just saying that because it can happen, right? So then, because if it happens, you don't use that as an excuse to say, oh, I'm a failure. No, you come back, right? You come back. When a baby falls, it gets up, right? It doesn't just sit on the ground. So yeah. So when you have gotten to that point where you have gotten consistent with it, then you can add a bit more exercise. Even though you can do that from the beginning, like you could do, let's say, I only did push-ups, but let's say you want to do pull-ups, 5 pull-ups, 5 sit-ups, 5 push-ups, whatever is best for you at that time. Do that. You can do more. I'm not saying you can't do more, but you're building the identity first. You're building the discipline first. Later, you won't call it discipline. It will just be who you are, right? It won't feel like discipline. Yeah, so that's that for this video.